Welcome to the Weightlifting Scoop.
This is Travis Cooper.
James Tatum.
Matt Bergeron.
Matt, going in with the deep voice.
Yep.
Putting us all to shame.
Anyways, guys, we're going to start out. James is going to read the Olympic Creed today. We want to talk about that a little bit.
All right, so here we go. It says, the most important thing in the Olympic Games is not to win, but to take part. Just as the most important thing in life is not the triumph, but the struggle. The essential thing is not to have conquered, but to have fought well.
So, the particular line I think we want to concentrate on is just as in life, it's not about the triumph, but the struggle. Thanks to Simon Klimisch, I've been reading the book Flow. And I haven't really gotten that far, but it talks about happiness and how people experience happiness and the fact that people are always trying to find happiness. No matter what they have, they always want more. So it's a very interesting book, and I'm thankful that he wrote about that book on the status on my Facebook. So how this ties in. The author of Flow, he's a psychologist, and he talks about how people are always trying to look for happiness, how people are typically not happy, but he found that when people experience the most happiness, it's usually when something is immersing all of their time. So particularly how this ties into weightlifting, us as weightlifters, we are constantly trying to reach a goal. And particularly here at Muscle Driver, weightlifting, we totally immerse ourselves into the sport to the point where we really can't think about anything else.
Yeah, in between training, we watch the training videos.
So, really, we're constantly immersed in it, and we have to sacrifice in order to be immersed in it. And he found that people are most happy when they sacrifice to be immersed in something. And typically people have goals such as they want to lose 10 pounds. Or they want to get wealthy. And he finds that people don't usually find happiness when they reach those goals. So when people lose 10 pounds, they aren't happy when they reach their goal. They just want to lose 10 more pounds.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, too, because I think that's one of the main things that makes CrossFit so valuable. It's not necessarily just about losing 30 pounds in 30 days or any of those schemes like that. It's such a community where people get so involved in it. They get involved with the people they train with, their coaches, and everything. And I think that helps to provide a little bit of extra, which makes getting your goals a lot easier.
And so particularly with the struggle, he talks about people experience happiness the most in times when they wouldn't really expect. So people have nostalgia about times that while they're going through them, they don't really think that it's going to be the happiest times in their lives. For instance, they interviewed people who were in concentration camps, and they asked them, what was the happiest time in your life? And a lot of them said something along the lines of, a couple of them at least, were brought up situations where they found a piece of bread and they were able to share it with one of their best friends in the concentration camp. And that moment where they were talking and sharing that piece of bread was the happiest moment in their life because they were so miserable. And there was such a contrast between the misery that they were feeling and the satisfaction that bread gave them. That's when they experienced the most happiness.
Yeah, I found that quite interesting how they can be in such a miserable situation and recall that as the happiest time in their life. What do you think about that, Matt? Well, first of all, Matt, would you consider yourself happy?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty happy. Do I not look happy?
No, you never know. I just figured I'd ask.
No, yeah, I'm pretty happy right now. Actually, really extremely happy with what I'm doing. There are some days at training where it's hard, but when I look back at it, I'm doing something awesome. I'm just waking up every day, training and having fun with everybody.
Yeah, even though you have the misery of going in there and doing snatch and clean and jerk every day.
Smolov.
Oh, yeah, you're doing Smolov now. What is that, 4 sets of 9 to start off with?
Yeah, it was 4 sets of 9, and today was 5 sets of 7. Yeah, it just gets better and better.
Oh yeah, that's misery to me.
What about sets of 10?
You know, I'm not even going there.
I'm gonna take a guess and say it's a little worse than 9s.
Yeah, no, it's a little worse. That one rep, it's just rough.
But how this kind of ties in is I had a 3-year period in weightlifting where I didn't make a PR. It was very frustrating. And I'd been working really hard. At the time, I had never snatched 140. And I was struggling. There were a lot of different reasons why I didn't PR, but it was very frustrating. When I finally hit that 140 on a day when I didn't expect it, it was probably one of the happiest moments in my weightlifting career, because it had taken me so long. I had to fight so hard to get to that weight. I just had this unreal amount of satisfaction in that moment.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I would say that when I am the most happiest, I would bring it back to the American Open. In that competition, I had some tight competition between Mike Service and Jake Rubash for the gold at the American Open, and I went out there for my last clean and jerk. And once I made it, it gave me the win by 1 kilo, and I was really excited. Just in that moment, it kind of made everything worth it. Worth all the training, all the excitement there. So it's kind of neat when you're totally immersed into something, and then you get that moment of happiness.
So there's so many reps that go into that 1 kilo PR, that 2 kilo PR. The frustration of not hitting PRs for so long, that when you go through a drought, or, for those that have injuries or they have to have surgery, and then they come back from that extreme, recovery where they couldn't even lift for a certain amount of time. Take Zach Critch, for example. He broke both of his wrists doing a clean in training. He had straps on, fell backwards, his elbows hit the platform, and his wrist snapped. He was not able to do anything for several months. And he actually told me it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. He didn't really understand how hard things were in life when you couldn't use your hands, and it really brought perspective to him. But I think 2 years later at the American Open, he hit 152, 192. That was his best total ever in competition, assuming he never comes back.
And he's an 85 kilo lifter, for those of you who don't know him.
Yeah, so just the amount of satisfaction that he had in that moment after breaking his wrist and having that long comeback, he felt like it was more fulfilling, from what he's told me anyways. And I find it interesting.
Yeah, I saw that video of him breaking his wrist, but it's kind of surprising that someone would come back and do so well after something like that.
So they told him, they said, you're never going to have 100 pounds over your head again. They just said it's impossible the way that you broke your wrist. He tore some ligaments in his wrist. And but you know what? He just decided within himself, I'm going to come back. This is what I love to do. I feel like it's what I'm destined to do. And he came back and hit all-time PRs, and I guess his best lifts in competition after that were 152, 195. Before it happened, I think he had done like 148 or 147.5 and 190. So, he came back. He got back to where he was, and he hit all-time PRs. And he had been lifting for a long time, so that's amazing.
Yeah, he must have been pretty excited about being able to get back into it.
So it's not about the triumph, but the struggle.
Yeah.
Also, so they were talking about doctors, or so kind of an example. I don't think this was necessarily in the book, but it's kind of like an analogy that I came up with is so doctors, for instance, when they're in surgery. So surgeons, they're in surgery. They're in that moment, that climatic moment where they have to make a decision, what to do. They're at the most important part of the procedure where things are tense. That's when the doctors were experiencing the most pleasure, the most happiness. was in that moment when they couldn't think about anything else, and it was so stressful, and everything depended on their decision. That's when they felt the most happiness.
I can validate that. My wife likes watching this doctor show called Grey's Anatomy, and I don't like watching it. And so every once in a while I'll watch it, and then it seems like people are so excited in that show whenever they get to go do some fancy surgery or something. But so they just seeing that show too, it just shows that their life is totally just going to the hospital all the time. And I got a few family members that are nurses, and they are like the same thing. So just immersing yourself into it.
So when you guys are attempting a PR, so back to weightlifting, bringing that same concept to weightlifting, where I find the most satisfaction is when I'm going through a workout, I'm not really thinking about anything. I'm just kind of like going through my warm-ups, and I'm getting to that PR weight. The moment before I take that PR attempt, where I put my mind to and how my mindset is, that's the most amazing feeling in the world, and that's when I experience the most happiness, is when I'm about to approach my platform.
Yeah, that's a interesting way to, for you at least, to put up with for how you feel happiness and all that stuff. For me, right now in my life currently, the best way I feel happiness is getting through like a hard workout period. So, because I'm still real new to this lifestyle and the sport, so even if it's getting through just the squat sets or the lift complexes we've done that are just really tough on the body as you're doing it, and then you think back and go, oh man, I got another 4 sets of squat, or I got another 3 sets of the complex, and then when I'm done with it all, it's like I got through it, and I can go do it again another day if I had to, and that's when I feel really, really happy about what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. I actually have never read the Olympic Creed until just a little while ago. So,
Really?
Yeah, never read it. Well, I might have a long time ago, but nothing really stuck. But, yeah, that's interesting how they, I know like the Olympics is all about diversity and everything, and like giving spots to the countries that really, so they can represent like everybody in the world, which is kind of neat. And I really like that, how it's about the struggle, the fight to get to the Olympics, which is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and there's a saying, I guess, John uses this, John North, a lot, and he says, the satisfaction as you're climbing to the top of the mountain is never going to be the same as when you're on top of the mountain. So that struggle to get to the top is really when you experience satisfaction, when you're hitting PRs, when people feel you on their heels coming for you. That's when you're going to feel the most satisfaction when training. So anything more on that?
No, not too much for me.
No, that's a pretty good analogy to describe what it's like to go for something, and it's not all the time about hitting a goal or reaching a goal, but sometimes just getting through it day to day and getting just a little bit closer to a goal.
Well, we call those process goals, those little things you do every day to help you towards your main goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's those are very very useful. If you set goals, make sure you set process goals. Little things you can do to get you where you want to be.
So James and Stephanie watch TV, and he's saying he doesn't like Grey's Anatomy, but he just happens to watch it a lot. Also, James, do you like the American life, or the life of an American teenager?
Oh, I think the correct title is The Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Man. Not that he pays attention to it or anything.
Oh yeah.
That one was a little different. That's all I got to say about that. There were some comical parts, because I mean it's really like a soap opera for teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting pregnant from everybody else, and it's just crazy. But
I guess I don't really understand it because it seems so weird to me. Because, I mean, first I grew up on a boat in a boating community, so coming into public schools when I was in 5th grade was kind of a culture shock. And then being there, I was out in the country, and so seeing something with like things that go on in California are completely foreign to me. It's like I'm going to a different country because it's I just don't things. I'd be like, oh, why are they doing that? It's just dumb. Why don't they just not do that?
All those wild kids in their rock and roll.
Well, no, it's Katy Perry what they listen to nowadays. Back in the 80s, it was rock and roll that was polluting the minds. Now it's Katy Perry and there's another one. Who's a party song girl, Kesha.
Miley
She's got a money sign in her name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, terrible. I wasn't allowed to listen to no Kesha when I was a youngin'.
Everybody has their, I guess, their guilty pleasure thing. I was waiting for James to attack me and Matt. We watch The Bachelorette from time to time. Just it's entertaining. So Matt was actually writing Facebook statuses about the Bachelorette the other day. So we were messing with him, but then I was like, hey, I'm being hypocritical. I watch that show too. I run out of stuff to watch on Hulu, and it's pretty entertaining. Whatever. I'm not afraid to admit it.
Yeah, I'm just, for all our lady fans out there listening, I'm just saying, any guy on the face of the planet could be as romantic as the Bachelor guys if a major network television station picked up the tab. All right, if it was like, oh, you want to go to Italy? Yeah, we can do that. ABC, give me a check.
Yeah, it's easy to travel when somebody's spending thousands and thousands of dollars and you're able to rent yachts and this and that. But
so enjoy those trips to McDonald's every now and then.
Hey, remember, it's about the struggle, not the triumph. So those trips to McDonald's are the things that you're going to remember.
Oh, you know what? When I was in high school, I heard that if you show up to McDonald's in like your tuxedo with your date and the prom dress, you were supposed to get free McDonald's food.
Yeah.
So I was like, hell, we're going to McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's. I mean, I took her out to another restaurant too, but I mean, like, I wanted to see if I could get free cheeseburgers at McDonald's for coming there, and they turned us down. They said, no, you don't get that. So I got one of those 99-cent ice cream hot fudge sundaes. Those things are good.
So James, are you cheap?
Let's see. What would you define as cheap?
I don't know. I'm just kidding with you.
He prefers the term economically sound.
Okay. He's financially sound. He's got a plan for his finances.
Yeah, I don't like spending money.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I like to spend money on something that will help me make money.
All right. Well, we also we've been reading this other book called Outliers, and we want to talk about that just a little bit. There's a lot of things that this book talks about, but particularly one thing we're going to talk about is how arbitrary, slight advantages early on lead to big advantages later on. So obviously an outlier is something that is so someone who's an outlier in weightlifting would be someone who's much better than everyone else. And the argument in this book is that the outlier doesn't get there because they're naturally born to be better than everyone else. They get there because of a series of events that made them better. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that there are people who are naturally born to be better at things, or do you think it's a series of events early on in life that cause them to be better at things?
Well, I've talked about this with some people, but I actually never. When I talked about it before, they never brought up some of these points that we're going to bring up in just a second about like your environment being the main influence or your genetics. So I always had a big say that it would be there's a large portion of genetics that are due to someone's success, but also the environment. If somebody's got genetics to be a really good long distance runner, let's say, but they're never in a situation to get better at long distance running, then it doesn't mean anything, and they're in a situation to make them good at Olympic lifting. I mean, they're probably not going to be that good at Olympic lifting. But those are just some of the general ideas. But this book, I think, brought in a lot of interesting arguments for the environment.
So I guess the first thing we're going to talk about is it talks about arbitrary cutoff dates. So the most famous thing in the book, the most thing that gets the most attention, I guess, is cutoff dates in hockey, which happen to be the same as weightlifting cutoff dates in the U.S. But cutoff dates for hockey in Canada is December 31st is the last day, and so January 1st is the new year. So kids, when they're younger, like 5, 6 years old, if they're born on January 1st, they are much more likely to get good at hockey than the kids who are born in December. So the reason for this is because they're playing in the same year, but they're almost a year different in maturity. So the kids who are more mature that are born on January 1st are playing against kids who are less mature, and so they are much more likely to make the All-Star games based on the fact that they're more mature, they're stronger, they're faster because they are older. So what starts out as a very small advantage when they start making the All-Star team, right? So they make the first All-Star team, they're coached by the better coaches. They get the opportunity to practice more with a new team. The more All-Star games they make, it just continuously builds. That advantage continues to grow.
Well, and all this is from like collected data. They're interpreting data, right? Not just making random.
Well, yeah, basically what they found is if they looked at like professional hockey players in Canada, that most of them are born in January. They're like, I forget the exact number. I think they're like 5 times more likely to be born at the first, third or fourth of the year than any other time in the year. So 5 times as many people are born January through April as opposed to May through December.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting where they just find those correlations and can make something out of it. Make sure you have your kid at the right time.
Yeah.
All those people that want to make their kids superstars in sports, which I don't agree with. So don't get too mad at me.
Well, I guess also, so they looked at school systems. So I don't remember when schools. What do you guys know the cutoff date here in the U.S., North Carolina, Georgia, anything? It's like August or something.
Yeah, somewhere around the fall.
So it's like July 31st or August or something like that. So basically, kids who start out, the earlier you separate kids into gifted and regular classes, the more you favor the kids who are older. So a kid who was born the day after the cutoff date, they're going to be the oldest person in their school class. And they're going to be more mature when they get into school. And so since they're more mature and older, they have a higher brain capacity naturally just because they're a couple months older. And at the age of 5, a couple months is a fairly high percentage of your age. So you're going to be like, 5% more mature. And so when you take the test to become a gifted student, you're going to be much more likely to do well on that test just based on the fact that you're more mature. And then they separate you. So at first it's a very small advantage because you're only 3 months older, right? 3 to 11 months older. But then as you're in the gifted class, theoretically you're learning more stuff, more advanced stuff. And you're just going to progress faster. And what started out as a small advantage over the course of 5 years old to 18 years old, when you're in these classes that is learning, the curriculum is tougher, you're learning more complicated, advanced things in mathematics, science, and so forth, it becomes a huge advantage to be older.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing something like that on, I think it was 60 Minutes or some news report show talking about parents purposely holding their kids back so that when they enter them within a certain age group or whatever, like say they're starting kindergarten or first grade or whatever, they're older and they're more mature, that they can comprehend what's being thrown at them academically wise.
Yeah, that's what they said. They said if you have a kid who's born right at the cutoff date, you might want to think about holding them back so that they have a better chance of succeeding. Because basically what starts out as that tiny advantage of being 3 months older and slightly more mature, if you don't get in that gifted program, you're much less likely to go to college. And or go to a good college for that matter. And then on top of that, if it goes that far, you're much less likely to get a good job. So, I mean, it can totally change your life just based on when you were born. And so it's not every kid. There's always exceptions. It's just saying that you're like a certain percentage more likely if you're closer to the cutoff date to succeed and get further.
So that kind of leads into the question, I guess, for when it comes to like weightlifting and sports about hard work versus genetics or things like that. So which one kind of outweighs, which one's worth more, I guess?
Well, I guess what they were saying is that it comes down to hard work. It's just that the kids who are more mature early on. So say if weightlifting, if there was more competition for like school age camps at the age of 12, the kids who are 12, who are born closer to January 1st, would be more mature and more likely to get chosen for the school age camp, in which they would go out, train with Zygmunt at the OTC. They would get to know the coaches at the OTC, so the coaches would know who the heck they are. And from that point, the coach will be following that person. And then they would be much more likely to become a resident at the OTC later on in life, which what started out as a small advantage became a big one.
Yeah, so I guess more of this is about being able to position yourself into better situations.
Exactly.
Is what their argument is.
Yeah, so just by chance these people were able to position themselves into a situation where they were able to train more.
Yeah, so just regardless of hard work, just they still have to work hard, but two people working just as hard as each other, if one's in a better position to be successful, they're going to do better, so to say. Even if they're equally talented or if one's more talented than the other.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily in the beginning that one kid is more genetically talented than another. It's just that they were in a position to get recognized because they were more mature. And from that point forward, they begin to get more and more training than the other kids, and the other kids are sitting at home having an off season.
Off season? I think Matt's got a shirt that says something like that. What's your shirt say, Matt?
It says, what off season?
Oh yeah, well, I was pretty close. Yeah, what off season? Weightlifting's a year-round sport, which I guess a lot of people are used to the off season. What do you think about that, Travis?
Off season, yeah. I mean, that kind of ties into something else with that's in the book. It's talking about how a lot of our a lot of the things that we come up with are based on analogy, things that we're familiar with. And a lot of things have come from the analogy of farming. So, for instance, over in Asia and the rice farmers worked harder than anyone, and they directly saw hard work turning into money. And so they have a lot of sayings that deal with hard work turning into successful family. And over in the Western agriculture, there's an off season. There's the winter. And James, what is it? The soil can get overworked, or?
Yeah, I guess with the crops that they have here in the United States, I'm no expert at all, but I guess they rotate the crops, and then every few years they just have to give the field a rest, just so it doesn't deplete the nutrients out of the soil. And I guess that has to do with the things that we grow over here, mostly being tobacco, corn, and wheat and stuff. But I guess rice is a little different.
Yeah, and over the winter, you can't grow certain crops. So I guess over there they came up with a lot of sayings based on their agriculture, based on rice farming, being that hard work turns directly into a payoff. And so when it comes to school, like when I was over in South Korea, they go to school until like 5 p.m., from like 7 to 5 p.m. And they don't really have a big summer break like we do. But over here, because of the analogies that we drew from agriculture over here having an off season, we think that the brain can get burned out. And so we have a summer break. And on top of that, we don't go to school nearly as long. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so they assume our brains are like soil, and they need to give them a rest for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you do bad in school, and then you got to go to summer school. Oh, the dreaded summer school.
Yeah, summer school over here is you're in trouble. You failed a class, you got to catch up. It's a punishment.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in the high schools and middle schools and stuff. And you know what I was thinking when we were talking about this, getting held back in like first grade or something. This is the first time I actually kind of viewed that as a good thing, because it's like, oh, they're holding them back so that the kid can experience more success with other people, which I never thought about it that way, but that might be a good way to look at it.
I wonder, it'd be interesting to look at the statistics. The kids who are being held back, are they the younger ones in their grade on average or not? It's interesting to see. But yeah, so I mean, based on the fact that we have a summer break, they find that the poor kids fall behind in school. And actually, I mean, they learn just as much as the rich kids in school. But what the rich families do is over summer break, they make them do things. They make them take musical lessons, piano lessons, violin lessons. They make them read, do hooked on phonics, read books.
Exercising the brain.
Exactly. Just doing things. They're constantly getting smarter and growing their brain. Whereas the poor kids are just hanging out. They're not being forced to read or do anything. And they actually have a negative learning over the summer a lot of times. And the rich kids have a very positive learning. So they don't learn more during the school year. They just learn more during the summer.
So despite the summer break or whatnot, richer families, or we'll say families with that proper positioning or whatever, opportunities, are pretty much mimicking other countries like the Far East and stuff, where they're kind of continuing education. Maybe not in the same manner, but just keeping the kids mentally active.
Right, and it wasn't necessarily the richest families who did the best. It's like, middle class and up. It's just the particularly poor families. It didn't have anything to do with genetics. It was purely what their parents were having them do over the summer.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I never took a summer school until I actually got to college, and I think summer school actually made a difference. Yeah, just being able to study year round just keeps you in the mode for doing school. And I actually did better in college than I did in high school, which maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, your reading comprehension stays higher, because you're constantly reading, studying. You just stay sharp year round. There's no negative learning point in the year.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. That almost I was reading something the other day, and they were saying for people that want to learn, it's not what you study, it's not how you study, it's the material that you study. And they were using learning a different language as the example. They said they used to teach people, I think it was Japanese, through reading the newspaper. So all the people that wanted to learn how to read Japanese were reading this boring newspaper that they had no emotional connection with.
Mm-hmm.
But then they changed it to something of an interesting topic for the person. So this particular person was reading about judo in Japanese, which was a topic of interest, and then he learned how to speak Japanese much faster.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah, and it's just about how you learn, which was his point, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so That was a lot to get through, but we want to tie this into weightlifting a little bit. A lot of the ideas over here about not being able to train enough or so forth kind of come from the idea that the agricultural trends, there's an off season in farming. There's a 3 months off with school. You don't want it to get burnt out. You want to stay, people start to believe that it ties into everything because we make analogies based on the things we know.
Yeah, things in our environment. I guess one of the things, separate, this is kids used to get off in the summer to go help with their parents on the farm. Mm-hmm. I know my grandfather was the oldest of like 11 kids, and they lived on a farm in Kentucky, and they would wake up early in the morning, do their chores and stuff, and then in the summer they'd work on the farm all year. And I guess that's kind of where society changes too, because back then when there was more farmers, the families were bigger, and just everything was focused around the farming, the livelihood. So I wonder how this stuff will change as we're moving into the technology age.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about, and I mean, I guess just not really having an off season of weightlifting is great. That doesn't mean that you have to max out every day or train as hard as you can every single day. But I think what it means is that you need to find a training program that is sustainable for you, something that aligns with your cultural values that you truly believe in, and you need to stick to it. So whether that's training twice a week forever is better than training 7 days this week, 2 days next week, 0 days the 2 weeks after that. That's not going to make you better, but find something that aligns with your values, the amount of time that you have, something you're going to be excited to do, and do it from now until the end of time, and just stick with it over and over and over.
Yeah, make little process goals. Make sure you get there, and get started, get going. The first 2 weeks or so are the hardest, but after that, it becomes a habit, and just keep going at it.
Yeah, they say with any habit that you want to change or adapt or whatnot. I remember this being in my sports psychology class back in college. It takes about 6 months, so half a year, to make a habit permanent, and that's just what you gotta do. Even if it's small things like saying, "Oh, I wanna work out 3 times a week." Doesn't matter what time it is, just work out 3 times a week and make that a consistent thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. When we went to Pan Am's and on the way back, we couldn't really train because of all the flights that were taking so long. And Travis got back and he was like, "Man, I haven't trained in like 4 days. I'm going crazy." So it was a completely off normal for him not to train every day with just 1 day off a week. It becomes such a habit.
Yeah, occasionally I've taken 2 days off in a row. I think maybe like one time in the past 3 years I took 3 days off. But my goodness, man, traveling back and having 4 days off, it really was. It's such a habit that it was making me go nuts.
So 3 days is the limit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if it's not doing anything crazy, I like to get in there and move around and just expend some energy. Start kind of going crazy and thinking too much. You guys got anything else?
Yeah, thinking too much, that'll get you in trouble.
Yeah. I think, there's so many decisions in life. Sometimes it's
just start that sentence off with, I think that.
Well, I was talking to Glenn about this. I was like, I've been thinking way too much about every decision in life. Do I put my left shoe on first? Do I put my right shoe on first? Which foot do I take the first step of the staircase with? And like overanalyzing the fact that if I step with the wrong foot, there's going to be like this butterfly effect, and it's going to totally change my training and my day. It's going to make me have a bad day if I put the wrong sock on first.
You start stepping forward with your right foot instead of your left, it's going to mess your jerk up, and you're only going to do power jerks, and you won't be able to do a split jerk anymore.
But yeah, there's a lot of decisions in life, you know. So
Yeah, Glenn just told me to stop thinking. Period. So.
yeah, so you got to stop thinking. I mean, I kind of exaggerated like a small thought that I had to Glenn just to mess with him, and it was funny. But yeah, I mean, in weightlifting, you just kind of have to go and you have to be in the moment, and you have to find that flow that we were talking about earlier. So, anyways, these were 2 great books. I haven't even finished Flow yet, but thanks to Simon Klimisch for letting me know about Flow. And Outliers was a great book, which I guess Paul Doherty told me about it on the trip at Pan Am's, and I actually forgot about it, but then they told me about it at church Sunday I got back, so I was like, hey, you know, I should be reading this book. Obviously, I've been told twice. So, anyways, you guys got anything else, or?
No, not too much. Just gotta get ready to go train again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. Just ready to go. Pick up weights again. Put them down.
I'm a bulldozer. I pick up weights and I move them around. But anyways, guys, we're gonna wrap this up. We're doing the fundraiser still, ricebowls.org. Check it out. If you want to help us, email me at theweightliftingscoop.com or at gmail.com. Sorry. Check out our website, theweightliftingscoop.com. And also tweet us at WLiftingScoop with your questions. And if you just want to bullshit with us, that's all good too.
Yeah, and tweet me at James Tatum 8. I am still trying to become more active on Twitter, but you know, it might happen, it might not. Also, check out JamesTatumUSA.com.
Matt, you got anything, buddy?
I guess I'll go along with the tweet thing. I got my Twitter at MattyIce230. Just tweet random things at me. I don't care.
Matt is quite active on Twitter.
He's a tweet machine.
Matt, you need to start tweeting me more so I have something to respond to. I just go on there.
He has 45 times the amount of tweets as followers. So he needs to up that ratio.
But as long as I have more followers than I do following people myself, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue what any of my numbers are. So,
if you really want to have fun, go to my Twitter, and I'll occasionally tweet a ask.fm thing. It's just like that anonymous questionnaire thing. You can ask me random questions. Go with that. No questions too bold or off limits for me.
There were some weird ones on there, but it was entertaining to read them.
There were some weird ones about just beards.
Hashtag watch my pelvis. Hashtag add them kilo. Hashtag get strong. Stay strong.